What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Gamescript. Tonight, I'm looking at the New England Patriots versus the Denver Broncos, and Bailey Zappe is going to be missing one of his primary weapons in Hunter Henry, but that's going to open the door for a low-priced and potentially low-owned replacement, and I'll get into that after this.
There is a ton of value in current underdog playoff best ball ADP. Elite offenses like the Bills are easy to stack. Take advantage of uncertainty and start drafting now. Use the promo code SEEK for up to $100 match on your first deposit. And subscribe to Heat Seeker Sports on YouTube for underdog strategy and drafting shows.
Hey, what's up, guys? Simon Edwards at Pumacom here with Heat Seeker Sports, and you're watching Gamescript. And as I mentioned at the top, today's game is going to be the New England Patriots versus the Denver Broncos. New England are 7.5-point dogs playing in Denver with a 37-point total. It's Christmas Eve game. The weather should be pretty cold. I don't know if there's going to be any snow precipitation, but it's going to be a cold game tonight. And it should be an interesting game, too, because there are a lot of injuries on both sides, which are going to impact the way that we build lineups tonight. So before I get into that, though, hit the like button on this video. I'm looking for 15 likes in order to put out a shorter video later on. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel because you're going to want to get the alert when that video gets put out. You're going to want to click on the alerts to get that. And on top of that, make sure to sign up for Underdog. As I mentioned in the promo that you saw right before this, the Buffalo Bills are still at a value, and they just improved their playoff chances to 75%. Same thing with the Los Angeles Rams, two teams that I have named and been drafting throughout the couple weeks or so since this playoff best ball began. And things are becoming more clear, and after this week, it should be much, much clearer. There's going to be a few more teams that drop out of that race, and I can guide you guys through how to play playoff draft ball, playoff best ball, and the players to draft. So I'll be putting out a lot of content with that. You're going to want to be subscribed to the YouTube channel and use the promo code SEEK, SEEK, on Underdog when you're signing up for an account, and they're going to match you up to $100 on your initial deposit. So if you put $100 in, you'll get a $100 deposit match if it's your first deposit on there, and that will set you up to do a ton of these drafts. So let's get into this game. The interesting part about this game is going to be the injury situation. Now, we got Bill Belichick bringing the Patriots to Denver, and this is going to be a tricky situation for Denver. They're playing for their playoff lives right now. They don't have a high likelihood of making the playoffs right now, but if they win this game, I think it vastly improves their chances to something like 70%, I believe, or at least something much higher than where it is now. And they need to win this game. It's going to be at home, but they're playing Bill Belichick, and you can never rule out Bill Belichick. Like, even though the Patriots have looked like absolute crap this season for much of the season, their defense is playing very well right now, and it's going to present an opportunity for Bill Belichick to knock out another one of those elite coaches in Sean Payton. And I can guarantee you he's going to have the team fired up to try to do that. And we're looking at the injuries in this game. Juju Smith-Schuster will be out for the Patriots. Ramondre Stevenson is still out. Hunter Henry is now out for the Patriots, and they're also missing two of their O-linesmen in Connor McDermott and Cole Strange. So they're going to be playing with a duct-taped offensive line tonight. So it's not looking very good for the Patriots as far as their offenses matchup. But I do believe with the injury to Hunter Henry, we can find a guy who I was thinking in the beginning of the season might have a bigger role in this offense, but he's kind of been left in the dust. But I think now with that Hunter Henry injury, and given the matchup that New England has against tight ends, that we can find a guy that will be able to kind of step into that receiving role at tight end and be a good value for us and give us some salary relief that, we might want I'm not sure that we'll need, but we might be able to use tonight in this showdown. So getting into it here first, the Broncos are obviously the favorites in this game, and they're favored by 7.5 points. As far as a matchup perspective for Russell Wilson, the matchup isn't it's a middling matchup for quarterbacks against New England. The quarterbacks have put up 17 DraftKings points a game against New England, so not a horrible matchup, but not a great matchup. But as far as the rest of Denver, the running backs have been not putting up points against New England, only 19 DraftKings points a game. Where they have been weak, where New England has been weak, is to wideouts. They're allowing 21.5 DraftKings points a game to wideouts, which is good for our guy, Courtland Sutton. As far as slot receivers, they're only allowing 15.5 DraftKings points. That's bad news for Jeudy, as if we needed excuse not to play Jeudy. And it's 10.4 DraftKings points are what New England is allowing to tight end. So that is not good for tight ends, but we don't have really tight ends to worry about. So Russ to Courtland Sutton stacks are going to be in play tonight. And if we look at the matchup for the Patriots, Denver has allowed 16.3 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position, which is also not a horrible matchup for the quarterback. It's a middling matchup for Bailey Zappe tonight. Denver has been allowing 23 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. So that's a good situation for Zeke tonight. Probably the best matchup on the slate is for Zeke or Courtland Sutton. So that's two guys that, are easy plug and plays given the nature of these offenses and these guys' roles in that offense. 10.5 DraftKings points are what Denver is allowing to wideouts. I mean, there's not really any wideouts in New England right now as it is. 16.8 is what Denver is allowing to slot receivers. That is also a bad mark for New England receivers. It does not look good for New England receivers in the matchup tonight. Where Denver is giving up points is 17.5 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position. And that positions our guy Mike Gesicki to have a decent game tonight. And Gesicki is dirt cheap on this slate because Hunter Henry was just ruled out the other day. And Gesicki is at 2,400. I think that's even for the captain. So he's even cheaper than that. He's 1,600 on this slate. Gesicki ended up with 2 targets last week, has not been showing up much at all. He's had a few games where he had 4+ targets, but not much to write home about. And he hasn't really done much. But when Gesicki joined the Patriots, Gesicki has always been a receiving tight end. And when he joined the Patriots, I figured he would have a decent role in this offense as a second receiver. Given the state of the New England receiving core, I figured that Gesicki would have a bigger role in this offense, but he has not, which opens up the door for him to come in tonight with no Hunter Henry and Bailey Zappe favoring tight ends, and the Broncos having just not really paying attention to tight ends in their defense. The tight end position has been what has succeeded against Denver. So that is setting up Gesicki here to have a decent night tonight and potentially score a touchdown. And at $1,600, he's going to be very low risk. Farrell Brown is the other tight end on New England. But Farrell Brown has primarily been a blocking tight end. So he's not really used too much in the passing game, but he does have a game where he had 15 DraftKings points. That was back in week 3 against the Jets. He has a 7-point DraftKings game, and that's about it for his high-scoring games. But he's only 600, so he's a guy that we can pivot to when we need some salary relief tonight. But Farrell Brown and Mike Gesicki are going to be 2 important names for the slate tonight. And Gesicki right now is projected at 15% ownership. And there's not a whole lot of showdown content that gets put out on Sunday. So I would not expect that number to jump too much because I don't think that everyone's focused on the main slate right now. that there's not a lot of people looking ahead or thinking about Mike Gesicki right now, except for us. So that is good news for us. And as far as the rest of this slate goes, Russ Wilson, he's probably going to be mediocre tonight. He doesn't have the best matchup, but he has scored 18 DraftKings points last week, 16, 18, 17, 14. If he gets in that 14 to 17 range, which I would envision him being, I think that he gets in the optimal. So given the state of the slate and the fact that we have some salary relief, that's going to save us. I think Russell Wilson should be an easy guy to plug in. Courtland Sutton, same thing. Courtland Sutton has one of the better matchups on the slate, and he is very touchdown dependent. But I think given the slate tonight, it's going to be hard to find raw points because I think that New England is going to play defense very tough, and Denver also has a good defense, and New England has a horrible offense. And I just think that when you can get guys like Courtland Sutton in your lineup with ease, just get them in there. Ezekiel Elliott, same deal. Zeke is going to have the better matchup on the Patriots. So Zeke is in a good position tonight with Denver having a notoriously weak run defense this year. And it's going to set up Zeke to have success tonight. Stevenson is out, which improves Zeke even more. Javonte Williams has a much more difficult matchup against the Patriots. And Javonte, he was coming alive for a little stretch there. So, I don't rule him out. Like I'd probably rotate him in, but I'm not going to have a main primary piece of my core in Javonte Williams tonight. Bailey Zappe, middling matchup against Denver. He's only at 8,800. Anytime I see a quarterback under 9K, I don't tend to shy away from them. That tends to be the sweet spot for a quarterback because he could easily put up 16 points tonight. He doesn't have the weapons to really do it, but if he's throwing the ball to Zeke, maybe he throws a touchdown to Zeke, maybe he throws a touchdown or two to Gesicki tonight, that would set up Bailey Zappe to make it into an optimal lineup. But he's not a priority of mine tonight unless we're doing Patriots win builds. Jerry Jeudy, guy's been a knucklehead all season. Last week was his biggest performance of the season. He scored 10 DraftKings points. Jerry Jeudy, I'm not really high on, but as we saw with George Pickens last night, even the knuckleheads can have big games, and George Pickens just had a monster game, which killed my showdown and Deontay Johnson call from last night. Hunter Henry is out, as I said. Douglas is another guy that should benefit from Hunter Henry being out. Douglas is the slot receiver over in New England. And as far as slot receivers, New England's been allowing 16.8 DraftKings points a game to the slot. Let me take a look and see at some of these slot performances against the Patriots here. Okay, so if we look at the previous games throughout the season, from week 14 on, I haven't updated week 15, but Deontay Johnson scored 15 DraftKings points against them. Quentin Johnson, Keenan Allen had 11 DraftKings points against them. Let's see, Jalen Hyatt, who's a wide out, he had 19 DraftKings points against them. Michael Pittman, another wide out, 16 DraftKings points against them. Jahan Dotson, 17 DraftKings points. He's another wideout. Jalen Waddle and Tyreek each had 28 DraftKings points against the Patriots. Stephon Diggs, he runs a decent amount in the slot. He got 18 DraftKings points against them. Jacoby Myers, 17 DraftKings points against them. I'm trying to find a decent slot receiver. CeeDee Lamb had 15 against them. And let's see. Other than that, no other real slot receivers against New England. But so I wouldn't write off. I wouldn't write off some of these receivers against the New England defense. I was reading New England, and I'm talking about a guy who's facing Denver. So let me look at Denver. All right, let's see. All right, so Denver slot receivers against Denver. We're looking at Jacoby Myers. I guess he's kind of slot-ish. 29 DraftKings points against them. Let's see. Tyreek runs a lot from the slot. He's 33. DJ Moore does not. I'm trying to find a slot receiver to give you a one-for-one example here. Well, mostly it's tight ends killing them, as I said at the top there. But yeah, I'm not really seeing any other examples of slot receivers. But Demario Douglas, given his role in the offense and given that Hunter Henry is out, I think Demario Douglas is a guy that can benefit there and kind of take on those routes maybe that Hunter Henry would have normally run. So I like Douglas's matchup in this game. He's at 6,800 though, so he's kind of risky to start, but he's out there. And then on top of that, Juju Smith-Schuster is out, so that's going to improve the workload of Douglas even more. Douglas was out, I believe, last week or the week before. Let's look. 15 he played. He was out for a few weeks stretch there. So it's good that he got a game under his belt after coming back from an injury. That means that he's one more week removed from injury. So I like Demario Douglas, and he gets a lot of the workload. 9 targets in week 12, 9 targets in week 10, 7 in weeks 9 and 8, and then 6 in week 7. And he had 5 last week coming back from injury. So this guy is a heavy part of this offense, and that's hard to find in New England. It's hard to find any consistency, but Douglas has target consistency at least. Broncos D, I like them tonight. They're expensive though at 5,400. Will Lutz on the Denver side. I like Will Lutz tonight because I think that it could be a field goal game tonight. I think that Will Lutz, will be positioned to score some field goals tonight. So I like Will Lutz, and I think Peyton will take any opportunity he gets to score against New England. Javonte Parker has been, what's he been doing with Zappe? He got 5 targets last week and 9 targets in week 13. Historically, Javonte Parker has been Zappe's favorite target, but he's going to be in a rough matchup tonight. So I tend to lean against Javonte Parker. I would lean towards Douglas instead. Ryland, it depends on how much scoring you think that New England's going to be doing tonight. They're in a tough matchup. They're a depleted offense, missing a couple guys off their O-line, and it's not looking good for New England tonight. But if you do New England wins game scripts, then I would put the kicker in there for sure, because I think the kicker is going to play any role in New England winning tonight. And the defense as well. 4K for that defense against New England. Russ protects the ball, but he still gets sacked a decent amount. That can lead to fumbles, could lead to scoop and scores. And if New England gets any type of lead, and Russ is forced to make uncomfortable throws, then he could get like a pick 6. And they're only 4K, which is cheap for a defense based on recent trends in Showdown. So let's go on to the next guy. Samaje Perine hasn't really done too much. He got 1 target last week. Let me check and see what the receiving backs are doing against Denver real quick here, or doing against New England real quick here. As far as receiving backs, yards per game to running backs, New England is middling in that. So they're allowing the 12th most receiving yards to running backs since week 6. That's 37 yards. and they're allowing 5 receptions a game to those running backs. So that's a decent amount, but that puts Pirine in play. But I think ultimately Javonte Williams has taken on such a big part of this offense that let's check out his targets recently: 2 targets, 4 targets, 3 targets, 6 targets. So he's getting a lot of work in that receiving game. So I think that any work that New England is giving up to the receiving game to running backs benefits Javonte more than anyone else. Kevin Harris is a guy that got some work last week, and he scored a touchdown. With Ramondre out, Kevin Harris is getting opportunity. So given this matchup, don't write off Kevin Harris at 3K. Marvin Mims, same benefit as that Courtland Sutton matchup, but he's just not getting the targets. He got 2 targets last week, 3 the week before that, 2, 3, 3. So he's getting about 3 targets. So if you think that Marvin Mims can get a 80-yard touchdown, then maybe he's worth it. But that's a big gamble to pay. But he's only 2,800. So maybe use him as a rotational guy when you get in that salary range. Troutman, not really interested in Troutman tonight. And we look at the matchup's not good for him anyways. So not really interested in Troutman. Humphrey, not sure who Humphrey is. Oh, Lil Jordan Humphrey. He had a touchdown in week 15. So he's, he's still relevant, but he only had, that's his highest scoring game on the season, and he had 10 DraftKings points. And, it seems kind of fluky. But it was the second week in a row that Humphrey worked as the Broncos' number 3 receiver ahead of rookie Marvin Mims, taking on a 57% snap share to Mims' 37%. So, maybe prop up Humphrey over Mims a little bit, because it seems like he's taken over that role a little bit. McLaughlin, he hasn't really done anything since he went on that little stretch. He had 3 targets last week, 2 the week before that, 2 the week before that. But he went on a nice little stretch there mid-season where he was doing pretty good, but he hasn't done anything since. Gesicki's who I'm interested in. As I talked about him earlier, he's going to be filling in for Hunter Henry tonight and should get some decent opportunity with this matchup against Denver, who's allowing a decent amount of DraftKings points. Thornton has not done much this year at all, and he's got a bad matchup. But he got 5 targets against Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago, which is relevant, and he's had a couple more games with 5 targets. So I wouldn't write him off, but he's only 1,200, so you can't really go wrong with him. If you can get 5 targets for a $1,200 guy, that's pretty good. But I wouldn't go out of my way to jam him in by any means. Kroll is another one of these tight ends on Denver. He has not really done much. I'm not really interested in Denver tight ends tonight. Farrell Brown, who I talked about, $600. And that is about it that I'm seeing on the, what did Hasty do with Ramondre out? He hasn't done anything. Okay, so we'll get into building a lineup now. Let's check out the captain plays. I think the captains are going to be pretty clear. Zeke will probably be the most popular. Russ and Sutton will probably soak up the rest of that captain ownership. I think I lean Sutton tonight as my captain. Although I think Zeke is the safest play for captain as far as the volume that he gets. Like with Sutton, we're hoping he gets a touchdown. He doesn't get the PPR volume to kind of support captain score. But let's say he does that tonight. We'll put in Zeke. We'll put in Russ. Let's get in Gesicki. Wherever he is. There he is. $1,600 for Gesicki. That leaves us with $5,100 per position left. I don't see a lot of guys up top that I like. unless you wanted to try to jam in Zappe. That gives you 1,500 left to play with. I would tend to lean Douglas to get me 3,500, which sets me up to be able to put in like a Humphrey or a Kevin Harris. But I think in this range, given this game and the projected total, I think this is a defense game. So maybe we go with the Broncos. I think the Broncos are more likely to have a defensive output than the Patriots. And, maybe lean towards I'd like to get Lutz into this lineup. Maybe we put in the Patriots defense too. We could do that. We could put in Ryland as another option. If we put in Zeke as the captain, let's see if that gives us any salary relief. If we put in Zeke, that leaves us with 5,300. That gives us Lutz. So I kind of like that better. I like Lutz as the option. And then Parker and Ryland would all be options in the Patriots D. So I think that is probably going to be a pretty common build because you're jamming in all the raw points guys, and then you're getting the guy with the matchup bonus, and then you got like defense and kickers to kind of round it out. That's probably going to be a popular build tonight. Let's see what the Optimal says. Optimal has Zeke, McLaughlin, Lutz, Demario Douglas, Javonte, and Russ Wilson. So they don't like Sutton for whatever reason. But my spreadsheet likes Sutton, and I'm going to kind of lean towards my spreadsheet there. But this is good build for an Elliott captain. If we wanted to do that, Sutton captain, I would probably go more towards putting in, maybe we put in Lutz instead of that Broncos D. That leaves us with 5,100. At least that way we have Parker and the Patriots D and Ryland as options. It's a double kicker build if you go that direction, but I don't know how many Patriots I want to put in my lineup tonight, to be honest with you, without it being like a defense or Zeke or Gesicki. So those are the three primary guys I'll be targeting on the Patriots, and then maybe rotating in Douglas. But as far as the Broncos, I think I'll pretty much have Sutton, Wilson, and Elliott in every lineup. So it gives it, like two Broncos and Zeke in every lineup. If you wanted to fade Zeke and get Williams in there, that leaves us with 5,900. You could go and put the Broncos D in there, and that way you have a 5-1 build with Gesicki as the only Patriot, which isn't a bad build given the circumstances of both these teams and what they're playing for. So, there's a lot of options there. Like, let's go with a Gesicki captain build because we like to get crazy with some of these plays here. If we want Gesicki, let's say that this is a Patriots win build. Let's get Elliott in there. Let's get Zappe in there. And then let's get Wilson and Sutton in there. That still leaves us with 6,200. So Gesicki is a huge salary relief guy. Basically do what we want. We could put the Broncos D in there. We can put Lutz in there. Parker, Ryland. Ultimate way to go here would be if we could get in Demario Douglas to give Zappe that second receiver. If I wanted to, let's take out Wilson in that scenario. Let's put in Douglas. Leaves us with 10-8. We could get Javonte Williams in there. That would make sense if Williams and Sutton were the only two Broncos. And then you got Zappe. Okay, so this type of lineup, if you have Williams and Sutton, Sutton has scored a long touchdown. Williams has scored a couple touchdowns. Russ isn't needed to throw anymore because they're playing with a lead. You got Zappe in comeback mode. He's throwing it to Zeke. He's throwing it to Gesicki and Douglas. He also throws it to Zeke. And, maybe Gesicki gets 2 touchdowns. Douglas gets a bunch of PPR points. And then Elliott, does a decent amount of rushing and receiving and then scores a touchdown too. That would be 1, 2, 3. That'd be 4 touchdowns. So they score 28 points in that scenario. Maybe Gesicki only scores 1 touchdown, make it 21 points. So they're perfectly capable of scoring 21 points. And then on top of that, Sutton, maybe scores 2, maybe scores, well, he'd have to be 1 touchdown. Otherwise he'd be the captain. And Williams, does the same. But this is the direction that you can go. I think it makes a lot of sense. And Gesicki, if he ends up coming through for us tonight, this would be a build that is probably pretty replicated, because Gesicki is going to have maybe 2% ownership in the captain. But since he's so cheap, it's going to allow everybody to jam in all these studs. So it'd be tough to get different going that way. But at the same time, if you leave salary on the table, that's always a good differentiator, especially when you're going in a direction like this that has an obvious build to it. But that's it for this show. Make sure to hit that like button. Get me to 15 so I put a shorter video out closer to lock and give you some more complete thoughts on my final core. And then on top of that, make sure to make a deposit on Underdog. Use the promo code SEEK, SEEK, as you can see down here on the graphic. And then they will match you up to $100 on your first deposit when you open up an account. And you're going to want to do that because we're going to be doing a ton of playoff best ball over at Heat Seeker Sports. And you guys are going to be getting a lot of content on that starting next week when we get a little bit more clarity. I've been doing a bunch of drafts already, found a ton of value. I've been leading people to the Rams and the Bills, who both improved their playoff chances to 75% over this past couple days. So get your money in Underdog, $100. They'll match you $100 on your first deposit for new depositor. And once you get that $100, then the contest entries are $5, $25, $50. I think they got a $250 in there. But you could enter a bunch of those mittens, which is the $5 contest. You could get 20 in there and then have your extra 100 to enter 4 into the gauntlet. So that gives you a ton of rooting interest in the playoffs. You draft in stacks. You're drafting to stack in playoff best ball. You're trying to stack teams that you think are going to face each other in the Super Bowl, and you're using strategy to try to get those first round bye players into that second round, because they're not going to be putting up points for you in the first round. So you have to draft value at the end of the drafts to try to backdoor those 49ers and Ravens or whoever ends up being the number 1 seed over on the AFC. You're trying to backdoor those guys into round 2. And it's really, really fun to do. And, subscribe to the YouTube page. Get me up to 300 subscribers. I'm at 250 right now. So I'm getting very close. Only need 50 more before the end of the season to hit my goal. And I will see you guys for the Christmas slate. If I don't see you with a shorter video later on, hit that like button.